Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of the series where I am hunting down an idle issue in my 533i. Now if you haven't already seen part 1 of this video where I diagnose several different potential electrical issues throughout this car, take a look at that link in the description below. Now in today's video I'm going to be checking out the idle control module, also known as the idle speed control unit, which is a separate small computer that is mounted above the ECU in this car. This is common for the 633 CSI, the 533i, and also the 733i. Today we'll be working on my e28, and I'll show you how to replace this rebuilt idle control unit from ProgRama. Now, I just ordered this. It was around $120 or something like that online. It came in a couple days, and we're going to install it, and hopefully that resolves the hunting and surging idle issue that I've been experiencing with this car. So here is a look at the rebuilt unit, and there is a $25 core charge for this computer, which basically means they charge you an extra $25 when you buy this computer, and then you send in your old damaged one and they'll refund you the $25. Now this unit was rebuilt by a company called ProgRama out of Boca Raton, Florida. And Boca Raton also happens to be one of the areas in the country that has a lot of millionaires, and specifically a lot of entrepreneur millionaires who work in online businesses. So kind of interesting that this rebuilding company for BMW computers, and I think they do all sorts of modules and different things, comes out of Boca Raton. So here's the bag. It says once you open this, it cannot be returned. And so I am prepared for that. And I'm also very prepared for this not to be the resolution for the problem of the idle. But right now I've sort of diagnosed and got to the point where it looks like everything is working, the idle valve is functioning, and unfortunately the voltage coming through to the idle valve is below spec. It's about half what it should be. And what I'm going to do is replace this unit that controls that, the voltage or the millivolts that go, or milliamps that are supplied to that idle valve. VDO, made in Germany. Okay, so here is the new idle control module. Whatever they did to it, something must have burnt out, and they resoldered or repaired the connections inside this board. And basically I'm just going to plug this in and let the car get up to temperature, operating temp, and see if the idle is still surging. Now if the car continues surging and hunting for an idle, I think that it might actually be an air intake leak, at which point I'll move on to part 3 video, and we're going to have to get a smoke test machine and check for intake leaks. Here we are on the passenger side of the car, and I'll just open the glove box here. And below this little vinyl plastic cover is the engine computer, the ECU. And if we look above there, we can see our idle control unit. That would be this guy right here. And in order to remove it, we just have a few Phillips head screws, one here, and then I think this one will be loosened as well. And so let's grab a Phillips from the toolkit in the trunk of this car. I've also just picked up a set of TRX wheels, which I will be purchasing some TRX Michelin tires for next year. And let's go with this one. Alright, here is the factory control unit. It's interesting that at some point someone put a zip tie on here. I don't know if that's factory or if someone did that years later after the fact, but I guess that's intended to make sure that this plug stays fully seated to the module. So another issue, if you're having an idle issue with your car, is that you can check out and make sure that this is pushed in all the way. It's another common issue with this, is that it becomes loose and not all of the pins are making contact. Now to swap this out, all I have to do is remove that 10mm nut and bolt on the new one. And I'll need a flathead screwdriver to pry the plug out from the module, so our factory Heiko screwdriver here simply flips around, and now it's a flathead. Just going to evenly pry from both sides here. Okay, and here are the two modules. On the left is the newly rebuilt one, and on the right is the original. So let's pop that in, get the car started, and see if the surging idle issue is set to rest once and for all. Alright guys, I have good news and bad news. The good news is the surging and hunting for idle is gone. So that is a great progress made. However, as you can see, the temperature is, the needle is in the middle here, we're at temp. The idle speed is still too high. It's at around 11 or 1200, and it should be below 1000, maybe something like 800 to 900, 850, something like that. So we have something else going on here, and it could be one of the temperature sensors located under the hood in the thermostat housing. There's quite a few oddball sensors and thermostat thermo switches on this early 533i, 633, and 733 that they sort of improved upon and did away with on the later model year cars. And for good reason, because they were troublesome, and all these years later, I'm still experiencing trouble. But the good news is this little gem here has solved the issue of the burnt out board, and I'll show you some photos here of what that looked like. Next up on our list here is to check out some of the coolant switches and coolant temperature sensors. I may also update the idle control valve on this car and smoke test it for intake leaks. So this job is not complete yet. We still have to figure out that high idle issue, but at least for now the surging is done, and I believe there's mention online that a surging idle can cause transmission damage on the automatics, and this is an automatic. So that's taken care of. At least I can drive the car around a little bit as we're heading into the end of summer here. And I guess stay tuned for part 3 of this video. Now that our surging idle is gone, let's go ahead and do one more electrical test. Again, we're going to put our meter in between the circuit and see how many milliamps of power is getting to our idle control valve. If you recall, in our previous test, we only saw around 200 to 300 when the spec calls for about 480 milliamps. So now that we've replaced the computer and the surging is gone, let's verify our findings here by putting our meter in the circuit in between the valve and the new computer, and we'll see what the milliamps of reading is. Now our meter is showing 0.47. If we move over the decimal place, that represents about 470 milliamps, which is in spec. So it looks like this diagnosis was on point. That idle computer was definitely bad and causing the surging. However, the high idle issue remains to be solved. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, let me know in the comments below what you think, or click the like button and subscribe.